creating a better day for the legends of the road with the non-slip van floors, protective interior liners, and full range of work van accessories. Trusted by major OEMs and fleets all across North America and Europe.
Fleet might be all about vehicles, but it's the people behind them who steer the real story. Welcome to Fleet Legends. The fleet industry is always changing, but one thing stays the same: nothing beats experience. In this series, sponsored by Legend Fleet, we're shining a light on the fleet professionals who steered through it all. These are the trailblazers, the problem solvers, the faces you've seen on show floors and interviews who've helped shape the fleet landscape that we know today. I'm Lauren Fletcher, Bobbitt's VP of Content, and your lucky host for today's interview. After years of reporting on fleet trends and technologies, I've learned that the most valuable insights always come from those who've lived it firsthand. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Oleg, a true fleet legend whose story is packed with the kind of lessons you just don't find in a manual. Oleg, let's roll it back to the beginning. Every legend has an origin story. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got started?
Oh, absolutely. It actually was it's a funny story, Lauren. I was working as a casual employee at Lever Brothers, and I was leaving on Fridays and taking Mondays off. And one of the directors asked me why my schedule is so convoluted. And I basically told him a friend of mine is currently racing cars, and I'm part of his pit crew. And I need Friday and Monday as travel days to get to and from the tracks that he's racing at. So, being a casual employee, I can adjust my schedule accordingly. And he said, "Well, I got news for you. We have an opening in Fleet, and I think you would be perfect for it. You're a car guy, and it's all about cars in this group. So, how about I put your name in the hat and throw you in for the clerk position?" And I said, "Sure." So, I had the pleasure of interviewing with Frank Klaus, another legend in the fleet industry back in the day. And Frank hired me as his clerk. So, when I tell you I legitimately started by entering expense reports onto a ledger sheet to generate projection replacement reports and keep track of personal mileage use, all done by hand when I started at Lever Brothers. So that's my origin. So it's just about at the turning point of when the abacus was introduced.
I probably got a million questions about the pit crew experience. But keeping it on fleet. I mean, you mentioned right now, I think a really significant change that's happened from ledger reporting to how we're using computers today. But what are some of the most significant changes that you've seen in the fleet management industry since you've started?
Oh, I mean, the technology. That's actually it's the speed of the technology, and how it develops and the applications that are presented to us as fleet managers. I mean, I bought in my personal computer from college that had Lotus 123 on it, which was the predecessor to what we all know as Excel. I was fortunate enough to have a lot of programming experience in Lotus. And what I did is I literally put in all those paper expense reports into a program in Lotus, and it eliminated us doing these gigantic spreadsheets and ledgers to keep track of everything. So everything went electronic, and we were able to generate replacement cycle reports right on the computer instantaneously. So as you entered the month's information, it automatically updated the mileage projections, and the report was current based on each month's data. Nowadays, with drivers being able to report their mileage directly into FMC programs, and all of that stuff is kept proprietary within certain software that the FMCs are using. It's just amazing what is out there, and available for fleet managers now. Telematics has a lot to play with that. So, I mean, a lot has changed in the 30 years, right, that I can legitimately say I've been in the business.
And that's huge. I mean, time savings, accuracy, the amount of information that you can now get from that data that would have taken so much more time in the past to kind of piecemeal together. That's been huge.
Yep.
So I mean, we both know experience doesn't come easy. Let's get into some of the takeaways that have really stuck with you. What are some of the more important lessons you've learned in fleet management that you believe are really crucial for new fleet managers to understand?
There are two. The first one is knowing the individuals who you work and partner with. So, in other words, as a fleet manager, you're pretty much a centralized figure who has outreach to many, many different departments within your organization. You're going to work with finance, you're going to work with procurement, you're going to work with C-level executives, you're going to work with human resources. You need to know who the individuals you work with are. Take the time to introduce yourself to them, right? Take the time to get to know them well, know what challenges they face, know whether or not you have the opportunity to actually help them with the challenges that they face, and build those partnerships and relationships with the people that you work with. Also, understand the people who you impact on a day to day basis in terms of your drivers. Understand that the decisions that you make are going to have an end to end impact on the individuals that use those vehicles. So, having both ends of that spectrum under control will make your job as a fleet manager so much more easier going forward.
It's more than just the vehicles, it's the people, no matter how you're looking at it, both within your company and the ones you're supporting.
Yeah, it's all about the people, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, examples with not knowing the decision that you make as a fleet manager representing your company and how it's going to impact the individual representing the company in your vehicle. So, very, very important to understand both sides of that.
So, I want to hop into a bit of a virtual time machine for a moment. If you could go back in time, what's one thing you wish you had known when you first started out?
Computer programming, being able to actually put together a program, or what they call bots now, to do certain tasks that I did repetitively on my day to day job. So if I could have the ability to create something that would streamline my time and provide me accurate data, that would be ideal, right? So that I could spend more time, researching or digging into more details on vehicles or policies or even financial impact. Um, that would have been a great big help to me in the past.
And looking at today's generation, you could really look at that similarly to utilizing AI effectively for time savings and finding ways to utilize it to kind of help with some things to give yourself more time for those exact things you noted and more research and time to talk and get to know your people.
Yeah. What's interesting about AI, or at least my personal perspective on it, and I'm very fortunate, I actually have a number of my friends and colleagues who are in the programming computer space and deal with AI on a daily basis. The one thing that they taught me about AI, which is very, very interesting, the program is only as good as the person who wrote the bot. And as a fleet manager, I highly, highly encourage these two things. Number one, understand that it's going to be you who is going to be presenting the information provided by the bot. And you need to know that that information and how that information was come about when you're presenting it to senior leadership. Because if you're asked a question as to how you got this data or how you developed this information, that bot is not going to be sitting by your side to explain to them the parameters that they use to generate the data.
Right. Right. I mean, we used to have to just worry about garbage in, garbage out, but now it's the process as well that has to be a solid process. Because if you've got good data and a wonky process looking at it, you're not going to get good information out. You're going to get garbage out at the end of the day.
A good friend of mine told me something that was really interesting, and I want to share this with everybody. If there's a process that you do every single day that takes you 30 minutes, and now all of a sudden they're introducing an AI application that does the same thing that took you 30 minutes, and now it only takes you 5. My friend told me, he goes, listen, take the 25 minutes that you got just freed up to review the data that was provided to you and understand how the data was obtained. So it's still going to take you 30 minutes, but you're going to know that it was done correctly.
I love it. That is a great tip. Well, from your perspective, are there any rookie mistakes that you've been seeing some of our new fleet managers joining our industry making that they should probably try and steer clear of?
Uh, that's a great question, Lauren. And I mean, rookie mistakes are basically learning experiences, right? I
Yep.
mean, at the end of the day, we still make mistakes, whether you're a seasoned pro or a rookie. Those mistakes are basically learning opportunities. I really can't specifically say one or two or three different examples as to what I see fleet managers making mistakes at or new fleet managers making mistakes is, but all I can do is encourage new fleet managers to understand what the process is that they're undertaking. So, in other words, don't just count on a third party to provide you with information or guidance without knowing what the process they use to get to that recommendation for you. So it's being inquisitive enough to understand what's happening around you, and that is how you're going to gain your knowledge going forward.
So, I mean, fleet is a balance. I mean, we clearly talked about people being a big part of it. There's the processes, technology. You've seen it all evolve. Thinking about what's really worked well, what practices or innovations have you found to really be the most effective in managing a successful fleet?
One of the one of the most impactful things that I try to develop within my professional appearance is knowing my audience, right? So, say for instance, you're going to be doing a policy change and you're going to be implementing this policy change that is going to have a drastic implications to your drivers. You're going to have to present this policy change to decision makers, C-level executives. They're going to look for a different type of presentation purpose than you normally use, right? Executives are definitely more bullet point
Yep.
oriented. They're going to ask questions, so you better have the answers and you better be ready. The second part of that is the implementation staff folks. So the individuals in the team that's going to help you in promote and push the program forward. The presentation that you make to them is going to be completely indifferent from the presentation you've made to the C suite.
Yeah.
And then, third, the end user. You're going to be rolling out a new policy to the end user. You want to make sure that the implementation team is on board and will support the role of the policy implementation across the board to them. You need to be transparent in your communication. You need to convey the impact that whatever the policy change is going to have on them, as well as be extremely open to any input or feedback that they have. Now, I don't know if you're aware, but in my fleet days, I used to take a great deal of pride in having a fleet advisory board
Hmm.
where I actually had different drivers at different levels, be it from new hires to middle management to directors, on this advisory board where we could have open communication back and forth on anything involving fleet, be it policy, be it personal mileage, be it safety, be it technology, all the way down to car selection. You know, are the cars that we're providing you working? If they're not working, what do you see us doing? And then communicating to them that, as the person responsible for fleet, you have to keep in mind corporate image, you have to keep in mind safety criteria, you have to keep in mind financial and budgeting
Oh, yeah.
implications on, capital proposal. So as long as they understand where you sit and you understand their needs, it kind of works both. It's kind of one hand washes the other, right? They feel involved in the process, and you involving them in the process just makes your job that much easier.
I love the idea of a fleet advisory board. I think I see a follow up article with you on how to institute that at fleets that are interested. That's an interview all on its own. Um, so, technology has come a long way. We've talked about a few areas that it's made a major impact over time. How else do you think it's really changed fleet management? And what advancements have really been the most game changing, in your opinion?
I think some of the coolest stuff to be out there technology wise is the telematics, right? In terms of the amount of information that is communicated by your car, right? And then multiply that by X amount of cars that you have, and then trying to capture and decipher all the little buckets and points that you need to make your decisions going forward. I think it's just amazing. One of the things that, I kind of pity the current fleet manager now is there's so much data out there that you could definitely get lost very easily in the decisions you're making based on the amount of data that's providing you.
Yeah.
So I think it's really kind of important that, whoever you partner with or whoever you use, that you actually sit down with them and establish benchmark criteria, because otherwise you could get buried really quickly. And I think that like I said, telematics just blows my mind with the amount of information that they can upload within minutes,
Yeah.
if not seconds, to a fleet manager.
It's all about focus, I think, and that's one of the things that I've definitely seen. It's this, fire hose of data that comes out, and how do you focus it in the spot that's going to make the most impact for your individual operation? And I think over the years, every fleet is different, every business is different, and so making sure you're taking that data to using it in the right, most effective way, and telematics can definitely help with that in some absolutely incredible ways. Um,
Yeah, and I mean, set yourself some goals too, right? For instance, if you're using your telematics for safety initiatives, some of that data is going to be so overwhelming that the expectations are going to be so high in order to establish and manage improvement that it could be daunting. So you need to definitely establish certain steps as you move forward in these different initiatives and programs that, actually not programs, but data that you're evaluating going forward. I mean, like I said, a lot of times you're going to get a knee jerk reaction and say, "Oh my God, my carbon footprint numbers are off. I'm going to go 100%, water based fuel, like tomorrow, and things along those lines. You just have to make sure that your expectations are obtainable.
I think that's a valuable lesson to learn. So running a fleet is one thing, but leading a team through ups and downs and challenges that we've got is entirely different. And I know some fleets have, teams of one, and others have much larger teams. But what strategies have you used to build and lead a really successful team over the years?
I mean, in my personal experience, I've been kind of a one man island, right? I've always been the one individual contact within North American fleet ops for Unilever. Where I used the most in regards to team building was with the global side, right? When I worked with the global fleet team with Lee Warren back in the day, we definitely used a lot of synergies between the different fleet managers across the organizations to establish the centralized policy and platform for the fleet, right? Again, it's being able to utilize all of your resources on your team and making them feel as if they are involved in the process. And if they're not involved in the process, make sure that you get them involved in the process so that they have a stake in the game, right? Encourage them, work with them, assist them in any particular needs that they may have. But you want to make sure that everybody's got a hand in the game. And I encourage that for all fleet managers is even if you are on that island running your fleet, like I stated prior, make sure that you know who you're working with and who you're working for and make sure that they're involved in the process.
I was gonna say there's a recurring theme that I'm definitely feeling here.
Yep.
So we know keeping a team motivated, and again, you noted for the longest time, as a team of one, but it can be no small feat. How do you keep even yourself motivated and engaged and inspired over the years?
Well, it it's the excitement of the accomplishments, right? I mean, you have such a big pot that you need to fill or such a big task that you need to complete. And working with other individuals and watching the pieces fall together is it's just awesome, right? It's an amazing feeling when you get across that finish line. It's not a sprint, man, it's a marathon. At the end of the day, that's what you have to look at it is. And getting these little pieces into place as you move down the road to that finish line is just an incredible high at the end of the day. It's the fleet manager's high, as I would call it, and as opposed to the runner's high.
Right, right.
It is very motivational, right? As you progress and as you keep getting closer and closer to that end goal, it's very motivational.
I mean, there's got to be something. As we've talked about over the years, so many of us have fallen into fleet. We didn't grow up saying, "I want to be a fleet manager when I grow up." But man, once we're here, something's keeping us. We never seem to leave.
No, I agree. I mean, it's funny. I call it a family, right? We all refer to it as a
Yep.
family. I legitimately have friends and colleagues in this industry that I've dealt with for over 30 years, right? That is that's an enormous amount of time that you know, have a chance to talk to people and bounce ideas off of and support one another. And it's just a great, great industry. We take care of one another. That's definitely for sure. We look after each other's best interests. One of the great things that I used to say back in the day is how many times can you have competing corporations sitting at a dinner table at an event talking about fleet programs and policies and how they can help one another to achieve a better process? I have had numerous opportunities to discuss policies, programs, different things with colleagues from competitive organizations, and we've shared enough information back and forth where we actually helped each other out. There's not many industries that allow you to do that like fleet because we're not sharing proprietary product information. We're sharing a process,
Right.
right? A process that impacts employees and drivers.
No, that's absolutely true. All right, let's hop into that virtual time machine one more time, and we're gonna look ahead for a minute. Because one thing I know for sure is the next generation is watching us, and fleet is always evolving. So, what advice would you give new entrants in the fleet management industry, people who are just starting out or just even hearing about this for the very first time?
Great question, Lauren. Like I said prior, I think it's important for anybody that enters this industry is to understand the process. You have so many opportunities to learn this business through different channels. being at trade associations like NAFA and AFLA, and of course all our good people at BBM, who continuously provide us with information and support that we need on a day-to-day basis. Basically, if there's something that's brewing, BBM is going to make sure we know about it. But you need to know what that process is, and you can't be afraid to reach out to somebody and ask for help. As a new fleet manager, take advantage of the learning opportunities that are made available to you. Get involved in the different associations, because that's the best way to meet people and establish contacts and relationships. And I can almost guarantee you that those relationships that you establish early on will be there very late in your career as you wrap it up. And I can attest to that today.
Yes, and I can add on to that. Don't be afraid to walk into those rooms. Walking into a place where you don't know anybody can be one of the scariest things, but I have never, ever walked into a room at a fleet event and not had somebody to talk to, not had somebody walk up to me, introduce themselves, bring me into their group. It is truly a welcoming family, as you said. So looking a little further down the road, what trends or challenges do you foresee for the future of fleet management, and how do you recommend new or current veteran fleet managers prepare for them?
Well, I mean, like I said, technology is definitely changing almost daily in regards to safety applications, in regards to the amount of data that's being shared. I mean, as a current fleet manager, you kind of need to take a holistic look at what you're doing with your cars, you know, and what the drivers are utilizing them for. Are you providing them with the proper amount of safety that's available? As more and more safety technology progresses, are you able to integrate that technology into your cars going forward? Right? Always keeping the driver's safety in mind is going to be critical. As far as from the corporate side, you want to make sure that the decisions you're making are actually financially sound and in line with what your corporation has in store for you in regards to your capex, your spend. You want to be on top of where they are, primarily on the liability side of their assets and so forth. So there's a lot of balls that we have to juggle, but you just have to stay on top of what's happening in the industry and apply that to your, what builds the character of your fleet. That's basically the only suggestion or recommendations that I could do, is keep as current as you possibly can, monitors the impact that it's going to have to your fleet and your company, and always keep the end user, your drivers, as a first priority.
Oleg, thank you so much for sharing your journey and the insights that you've gained along the way. It's stories like yours that remind us that fleet isn't just about vehicles and tech. It's about the people driving the change. So before we wrap up, I'd love to give you the last word. Is there anything else you'd like to say to folks watching or to your fellow fleet pros who are tuning in?
No, just I want to thank everybody for all of the support over the years. I truly look forward to getting back into the business as quickly as I can, and continue to contribute where I can. Again, as I said, it's all about connections and contacts. If anyone has any questions or anybody needs any insight or information from me, please feel free to reach out. There's nothing more enjoyable for me than to help somebody down the road in making a decision or making a different choice or a difficult choice that they have to make. I've been very fortunate to have experienced a lot in this industry, and I'm more than willing to share it with anybody who needs the help.
We'll drop your info into the description. For everyone else, we hope you're walking away with some solid takeaways. And maybe a little inspiration too. If you've got some thoughts on the episode, drop them in the comments. Know someone else with a legendary story? Tell us who you want to see next. We've got more great conversations on the way, so stay curious, stay connected, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Fleet Legends.